somebody's screwing up. But somehow the media is saying he's a front runner. But from recent developments, this guy is going to fall hard face first on the concrete, and I'm going to point and laugh at him. Daniel, who am I talking about?
Joe Biden and Pete Buttigieg and Kamala Harris. I actually don't know. I have the article in my hand, so I think I have an idea, and I think it is Pete Buttigieg. So here we go. On October 25th, Pete Buttigieg's campaign released the following: a screenshot of a press release pointing to an article in the HBCU Times titled "More than 400 South Carolinians Endorse Mayor Pete Buttigieg's Douglas Plan for Black America." The link then goes to an article in the HBCU Times. HBCU stands for Historically Black Colleges and Universities, which is credited to three prominent Black South Carolina figures above, and quote, and more than 400 Douglas Plan endorsers, end quote. The article praises the Douglas Plan's proposed spending programs and legal reforms, arguing that, quote, there is one presidential campaign who has proven to have intentional policies designed to make a difference in the Black experience, and that's Pete Buttigieg, end quote. The political usefulness of such a document is obvious for Buttigieg, who is polling very poorly with Black voters, both nationally and in South Carolina. And we're going to see in a second how it's about to get worse, which holds the 4th Democratic primary / caucus and has a major Black Democratic electorate. The problem, if you haven't heard this story, you're about to sit in your chairs. When The Intercept dug into the endorsement, it found that 2 of the 3 top-line Black politicians listed said they never endorsed the Douglas Plan, and that at least 40% of the other 400 individuals whose names are listed are white. Wonderful. Here's what State Rep Ivory Thigpen said. Even though I had conversations with the Buttigieg campaign, it was clear to me, or at least I thought I made it clear to them, that I was a strong Bernie Sanders supporter, actually co-chair of the state, and I was not seeking to endorse their candidate or the plan. So, Buttigieg is strawmanning Black people so that he can get Black support for his plan that apparently isn't liked by Black people. It's a wonderful sentence to have said. Buttigieg, we did a pre-recorded something a little before the show. You'll be able to see it tomorrow, of the dancing troupe that he's done. Buttigieg is throwing out all the stops to destroy his campaign as quickly as possible. And you know what happens when you're a mayor of a small town in Indiana, which is known for not treating African Americans in a good light, for firing your chief of police because he is connecting your donors to racist cops? Well, that person might not be the most trustworthy in general, and to specific communities even more so. And so what do? Did he really think, guys, that he was going to get away with all these names and that the media? Okay, wait, I don't want to say. Does he think that the media, every media is like mainstream media and will just take anything he says at face value and not check into it? Did he really think he was going to get away with this?
Okay, so here's the thing. First, after reading this story and even hearing how Pete Buttigieg was somehow surging in the polls, I knew that it was BS, because they were saying the same thing about Biden, about how inevitable he was. And then when even if we wind back the clocks even further, when Kamala Harris was the talk of the town, including Beto O'Rourke, I knew it was BS. But the thing is, you're asking because it's kind of difficult to get into the mindset of somebody like these politicians.
He literally, the Bernie Sanders co-chair.
But I would say that perhaps Pete Buttigieg was arrogant enough to think that this plan would work, because number one, Biden's campaign is starting to spiral out of control. Warren is right now a blabbering mess with her plans and her flip-flops, and everything else seems to be falling apart in front of her. So I think at this point, Pete Buttigieg was arrogant enough to think that no one would look into this. He was arrogant enough to think that there would be numerous media outlets to say, like, oh, well, yep, Pete Buttigieg, Obama 2.0. He's not Bernie Sanders. He's not a progressive, but he's not going to screw up like Biden. He's not going to be a stuttering mess like Warren. So, yeah, this is our next best shot. So let's all go in for Pete Buttigieg. And I think he really thought that. I think Pete Buttigieg assumed two different things. And it goes to show that not only is he not ready for the presidential race, He should never have even entered it at all because there's a whole slew of problems in South Bend, Indiana. I mean, there's numerous problems, especially there's a lot of things to call into question about his time as mayor because let's face it, he listens to his donors. He only listens to his donors. He doesn't have an individual thought. So when his donors bark or tell him to command, he basically jumps up to their commands. And that's the problem with Pete Buttigieg is that he's arrogant and very blind.
Buttigieg is really trying to take a note out of the sort of 20th century politician playbook and emulate Biden and go, I've got to get the Carolinas, right? That's going to show the rest of the country that the minority vote is cool with me, right? I got it. It's cool. But I think he drinks so deeply from that Kool-Aid that he doesn't see that he isn't popular amongst minorities and tries to, force it anyway. And he's at a point where it's like, well, we've got enough keywords in there. We'll convince the people who are not paying close attention, right? We've got HBCU is in there, right? And we've got like Pete Buttigieg. We've got Douglas in there. Buzzwords, good.
Douglas
Even if someone calls me out on this, the buzzwords are going to do their job. And I think, so that's a gamble for him. It might work.
But there's another thing, too.
Wait. There's also, just to build on that point directly, it requires, because it's not like his campaign is just randomly doing this. They're doing this because they made the calculation that the amount of boost that they're going to get from being covered uncritically on ABC, NBC, et cetera, is going to be stronger. Their lie will be carried so strongly on mainstream news, which they think is stronger than it is, whereas they're completely ignoring other news. Again, 90% of news companies might be owned by 90% of news distribution is owned by 6 companies, but that's, you're only counting a certain way. In an online viewership, it's actually much more even than that. They don't care about that. They don't care that he's lying. They don't care that he's lying to people that he's trying to gain the trust of, but to Paul's point, already distrust him. So congratulations, Pete. You're a failure.
There's another thing, too, to look at, and that is, in that article, especially with the Douglas plan and all the people who endorsed it, half that list of endorsement people were white. It wasn't 400 African-American leaders or community leaders or people
was
in
a
the
lie.
It was all one big lie, and it calls into question. And I hope it's brought up during the debate.
I hope he doesn't think black people are stupid.
Yeah, I think at this point, Pete Buttigieg is probably assuming a lot of people are stupid. I think he's assuming that the media and no matter what the voting demographic, I think he's arrogant enough to think that everyone is still in the mindset of anybody but Trump. We gotta be afraid of Trump when what people want, what voters want, are policies and strong decisions, and people are going to follow through. Pete Buttigieg has proven that he is inconsistent. His campaign is willing to lie and cover it up, and he's assuming that people will be stupid enough to follow along with it. Look, we have social media at our fingertips, and this is why, because Daniel, you brought it up about 9% of the media being owned by corporations. This is why we are here, to call out the corrupt politicians and to call out their hypocrisy. And Pete Buttigieg is a hypocritical, neoliberal corporate candidate who's going to do the bidding of the corporate donors and lie to voters, and lie especially to the voters in South Carolina, and lie to the African-American population in South Carolina to say that, 400 leading individuals in South Carolina support my plan. No, it's all one big lie, and Pete Buttigieg should not even be considered to be a presidential candidate at this point. He's done in my book.
Yeah.
And that's it.